to the Newsdesk Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, with the renaming of a cricket stadium after Prime Minister Modi, of course, it had to be the world's largest stadium. Has the BJP completed the process of the Congressization? I'm saying this not just in naming and renaming, because as the BJP leaders say that, well, the Congress can hardly complain. They've renamed every chalk, every mall, every, stadium, every airport, anything they could after the Nehru Gandhi family. But certainly the BJP has now lost the moral right to complain. And actually, this argument goes beyond just the naming and renaming. We're also talking about the centralization of power. The high command culture that was there in the Congress is something that we are now seeing in the BJP today. So my question is the renaming of the stadium after Modi, is this the final touch in what I call the Congressization of the BJP? Joining me for this discussion on the roundtable is Veer Sanghvi, former editor, political analyst, columnist, and of course a TV personality. R. Jagannathan, he is the editorial director at Swarajya and a political commentator on television. Sanjay Jha, author, former national spokesperson of the Congress, and a very prolific political columnist, I would say now. Sandeep Ghosh, he's an op-ed writer and a political columnist and analyst. Let's talk with the most recent happening, the naming of the stadium. I mean, this is really the Congress culture coming in, the cult of the personalities, but at least the Congress used to wait till the person was no longer there. This is being renamed in his own lifetime.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Priya. I would expand that slightly. It's not just the Congress culture. It's true of virtually of every political party in India. The Shiv Sena in Mumbai has done pretty much the same sort of thing. If you go to Mumbai and you don't get COVID, you're liable to be stopped in the streets by postmen trying to ask you where streets are because they no longer recognize the names. All familiar roads now have strange, bizarre names. So therefore, to rename a stadium, frankly, I think is not a big deal, nor is it indicative of a particular Congress culture. The difference, as you correctly pointed out, is that it's been done while the person concerned is still alive. I've been racking my brains to see if it's ever been done before. And the only answer I can find is the BCA Stadium, when Mr. Wankhede, who's a politician, was in charge of the Bombay Cricket Association, or probably called something else, but effectively the Bombay Cricket Association. Sanjay will know exactly what. And they named the stadium after him. His excuse when I asked him about it afterwards was he happened to miss that meeting and they went behind his back. I have no idea whether this government will use a similar excuse, but certainly it's a bit odd to do it. There is also a second agenda, which I think people seem to have missed. This has been often compared to Mr. Modi's monogrammed suit moment when he was sort of roundly criticized. But there is a difference in that after the monogram suit moment, you had Rahul Gandhi saying, "Suit boot ki sarkar." And many supporters of the government say that this was the turning point. After that, Mr. Modi went easy on reforms. Well, I don't know if that's true. But either way, what this indicates is that Mr. Modi now is confident. He doesn't really care what people are going to say any longer. To do this just before an England match, know you will be criticized and made fun of in the British media. To name a stadium that has a Reliance end and an Adani end, he could not possibly have missed the symbolism. Broadly, he's saying, I'm here to stay. I'll do what I want. Who are you to complain?
In fact, the other person, Veer, is Mayawati, who's had statues done in her own...
of herself carrying a handbag everywhere. Yeah, I have noticed.
There's a Sharad Pawar Stadium also in Bombay.
Exactly. Where is this?
There's a Bandra Kurla cricket stadium.
The arguments that he's going to make. But Jaggi, can I bring you in? Let's take the point further from what Veer has said. Is this the turning point of the reversal or U-turn from the suit boot moment where he's going to react totally, he's already been saying pro corporates, pro this thing. So is this another, he's now embracing this image of himself?
Very large vessels take a long time to turn around. So this is one of those things. So before I come to that, actually, I'd just like to something to what Veer said. He said he didn't see any earlier thing. Don't forget that both Nehru and Indira Gandhi awarded themselves Bharat Ratna when they were in office. So the point is, it's not like people haven't done things in their name when they were in power. This has happened many times, and this is one of those things. I am surprised because usually the PM doesn't do this kind of a thing, or at least approve of this kind of a thing. Usually he says Pradhan Mantri is something, and there are some 70 such schemes called Pradhan Mantri this and that, and it's never in a personal name. So, but people know who's a Pradhan Mantri, so they associate it with him. So as far as the turnaround is concerned, I think somewhere into June 2018, Mr. Modi decided that he had to go back to his Gujarat persona, because I think 4 years where the confidence of business was substantially lost in the pursuit of black money or whatever else was necessary to establish his credentials as a clean person who went after the crook. I think he saw that business confidence was at a low ebb, and there is no way this economy is going to revive if business own feelings are down in the dumps somewhere. So I think at that point, there is also another point I would like to say, that, if you're going to be criticized no matter what you do, then you say, okay, go to hell, hung for a lamb, hung for a sheep, what does it matter? So let this happen. So how is that going to make any difference? Because even assuming it was not done, if you had just called it Sardar Patel Stadium or Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Station, it would still have been criticized. So he says, okay, fine, let it be Narendra Modi Stadium.
As simple as that, Sanjay. Would you agree with that?
Well, see, Priya, I think, whether it's a BJP or the Congress or any third party, vanity is a human vulnerability. Political branding is something that all politicians look for, because, in
the Prime Minister is human, after all.
No, let me tell you that, the truth is that politicians survive on public perception. It's more so in today's times with, social media and a lot of electronic television. And I think somewhere down the line, if you look at it, it's not just Mr. Modi. I mean, the government has quietly sponsored a lot of schemes behind Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, one of the most revered names of the Janasangh and the BJP. If you look at, even you have had cricket stadiums in the name of Atal Bihari Vajpayee as well. You have a Veer Savarkar flyover in Bangalore. So I think there have been manifestations of this change happening. And I do feel, because I've been part of the Congress, I still am a suspended or animated suspension guy. But the truth is, I think the Congress made the mistake of going over the top with the Gandhi family propagation on these monuments. There is no denying that Pandit Nehru or Mrs. Gandhi or Rajiv did not do an outstanding job. I think all prime ministers need to be revered. I am not against that as a matter of principle. Mr. Modi's legacy will go far beyond the infrastructure or the concrete behind the stadium. But the fact of the matter is that I do think politicians need to take a backseat where sports is concerned. I don't mind a port or an airport named behind one or two politicians, not going to an extreme, of course. But sports is something so sacrosanct to human spirit, the hard work, the sweat, toil that goes behind success. And I just hope that BJP, Congress, and all political parties let the stadiums, the sports stadiums, whether it's cricket or any other sport, be celebrated by sports people. That's my one singular objection to Mr. Modi's name being hoisted. I do believe that Mr. Modi has a right to be on projects of highways. I mean, if I was him, I would choose a great expressway project to be named after him. Nothing wrong, because even the Gandhis
are out of power, not while you're even still in power. That I don't think anybody's done that.
Well, I do feel that maybe even that needs to be changed. For example, let's assume that Mr. Modi wins the third term. To say that your name should only come up when you're not there to celebrate it, I think even that is a bit of an exaggerated hypothesis. You can celebrate your name when you're alive. Nothing wrong with that either. I just feel politicians need to draw a line on the sand. You can have your name in one or two places, but draw the line. I think that is the critical differentiation that needs to be brought in.
Your take on this renaming of the stadium?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
See, first of all, I would make a slight distinction between the naming of things, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya or the Shiv Sena people. That was a clear answer to the ecosystem. The Congress had so far dominated the ecosystem, and therefore if they were trying to change the narrative by bringing in the BJP, RSS, or even the Shiv Sena, you might say, or any other parties, rest of India, that was a different thing. Now, Modi, my objection to, or problem, I wouldn't, who am I to object, is there are a lot of people like me who have no strong RSS, BJP background, but we all supported Modi because what we thought he stood as a person. What are the values, whatever he was bringing in. And that's what and here we feel a sense of being let down. And I've said this in another program. I distinctly recall Mr. Modi talking, I think it was the 125th anniversary of Swami Vivekananda's Chicago speech and the Vigyan Bhavan program. And he underscored the fact, he says, look at the greatness of this man. He made this fantastic institution which has survived more than 100 years all over the world, but he did not name it Vivekananda Mission. He named it after his Guru Ramakrishna Mission, and he kept himself. So that is the kind of value he espoused. And that is the kind of value which we looked at. And so therefore, that's where I find the dissonance in this. But I would be hesitant. The issues are very valid. Everything all of us have spoken. I would be hesitant to label it Congressization, and maybe we'll come back to that later. I think it'll be not only unfair, but we would be making a mistake in judging what is happening to BJP or Modi on the wearing the filters or specs of what has happened 60 years back before this. His template will not be, his or BJP's template going forward is not going to be the old Congress template. So if we remain stuck there, I think we'll be missing a lot of things to come.
Actually, I disagree with you. Since I'm calling this the Congressization also, because there's also this whole, it's not just the name, it's the brand building, the culture of the personality, the very Indira Gandhi type of, brand building that we are seeing in Prime Minister Modi.
Well,
I will interrupt you. Sorry. Go ahead, Veer. Go ahead, Veer. No problem.
Yes. I think, Priya, the second part of your Congressization element is the stadium is only like the trigger for the show, but what you're talking about is the extent to which the cult of personality now dominates the BJP. And the answer to that is yes and no. There's always been a cult of personality in the BJP. In the days of Mr. Advani and Mr. Vajpayee, they were the leading figures and projected as such. For instance, from I think when was the BJP founded? 1980 something. The main slogan was Agli Bari Atal Bihari, Abki Bari Atal Bihari. So it's always been a personality-driven party. The difference between Mr. Modi and perhaps Mr. Shah and what's gone beyond is not the personality element, it's the power element. I don't think the BJP has ever had a leader who is so unchallenged. You will remember, Priya, you covered the Vajpayee prime ministership. It was not that easy for Mr. Vajpayee, apart from the fact that in many matters Mr. Advani opposed him. There was also the son to worry about. Mr. Modi is, I think, the first BJP prime minister, perhaps the first prime minister since Indira Gandhi, who doesn't have to worry about anything, not about an external opposition, not about an internal opposition. So the issue with Mr. Modi is not that you see his cutouts or caricatures or even that stadiums are named after him. The issue is he's probably the most powerful prime minister we've seen in the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sandeep, you wanted to come in before?
Yeah, I want to say here, I think I totally agree with Veer. But why I was saying we should not judge it on the template of Congress, because I would still believe, see, you're comparing with Indira Gandhi. Modi will never be able to form a BJP M or a BJP A. That is not going to happen because, it's a totally different construct between the RSS and the BJP.
It's already the BJP M, I would say.
No. But do you think it can? He can break away and cause that kind of a breakaway? It won't happen. So he will find, as Veer is saying, within the current format, he would be creating a different sort of power structure, which is happening between him and Shah. But that's not necessarily Congressization. And I think that is where I would distinguish and take the elements at a time as to how this combo is really panning out.
Do you want to come in on this, the centralization of power argument?
I think those who don't have the power can pretend to be Democrats. Those who do have the opportunity to exercise that power will stamp their thing. I mean, there's no point in having 303 MPs and say, I'm going to consult 200 guys and not do anything in the next 5 years, right? You've got to have a coalition who's behind you. Then you have to struggle with 20 different compromises before you get a single thing done. Here is a man who doesn't need that thing. So he consults what he thinks is the experts and gets on doing whatever he has to do, whether it's the Central Vista or the Motera Stadium or whatever, right? So as far as the cult of personality is concerned, I'm saying in the TV age, there is no country in the world which does not elect leaders on the basis of a cult of personality. Now, you can say the cult may last long, it may not be last long, but you need a visible leader. So once you accept somebody as a visible leader, you will find that the personality cult develops around it, because TV typically chisels your image in a particular direction. TV is very good at making, suicide bombers into sons of school teachers and all kinds of things. So why not a prime minister who looks more like a Tagore or a saint? So my point is, TV is eminently suitable for making you what kind of person you want to be projected as, and from the point of view that the PM will not actually talk to people he's, let's say, unhappy with, means that you get he's like a corporate CEO. Corporate CEOs will not talk to you if you are, let's say, seen as hostile to a particular company. They'll talk to people who will project the image of the company the way they want it to. So this is what Mr. Modi is doing. And I think in the current situation is work. And I doubt if people like Sandeep Ghosh and all would have crossed over to the BJP if you didn't have a Mr. Modi. If it was, let's assume, or a RSS collegium running the party, maybe he may not have come. So he has actually brought the BJP center stage because of who he is, and not necessarily because of the Sangh Parivar.
We've also seen in the Congress, the reverse is happening. First time we are seeing the high command being questioned by, some of you, in fact. So is it what do I call it? The BJPization of Congress also happening?
Well, the fact of the matter is that I do believe that in government, political parties change their tune. You will remember that Mr. Modi talked about a free market system, a more pro-reforms, larger liberalization and modernization, blah, blah, in 2014. But ever since, if you follow the economic policies of the government, it's actually been totally Congress, not just Manrega. By the way, the entire focus on social welfare, subsidies, etc., has been something which has been the Congress growth model. So if you go beyond the cosmetic or the synthetic discussions of a stadium, you'll find that the BJP has actually followed the Congress growth model. And I'll give you another example. Rahul Gandhi came up with a brilliant one, I thought, the Hum Do, Hamare Do, where he made a dig at, the two big corporate behemoths in India and Mr. Modi's proximity to them. Now, I think we rightly pointed out, it's a pretty mammoth PR embarrassment to have that as two ends in the Motera Stadium. But let's go beyond it. Today, you find a situation where I will concede that there was crony capitalism during the time of the UPA in the way we probably managed many of our natural sector contracts. But under Mr. Modi, and I'm telling you this with a lot of, not just conversations with people in industry, because there is enough documented in the public domain, Priya, there is an oligarchic structure in India. There are certain very powerful businessmen who have a very significant influence in terms of acquiring public assets. Now, what are their manifestations of? So I do believe that the BJP, whether it's even with national security, peace with China, peace with Pakistan, you're hearing it in the papers today, you do realize whether it's foreign policy, economics, even domestic policy, I think they're largely the same. So I think what Arun Shuru rightly pointed out once, that the BJP is the Congress plus the cow, is possibly true.
Sandeep, I don't think I want to agree with this one, or would you agree now?
No, I don't think that is, again, that's, I think, a misplaced analogy, the cow and the BJP, etc. Like I said, a BJP cannot be Congressized. I equally believe the Congress of today cannot be BJPized because the structures are different. Today, who are the people challenging Rahul Gandhi? What is their own base, with due respect to Sanjay? Okay, none of them can really carry through even a city rather than a state. The Congress is the structure is dismantled. There is nothing at the base. So they mistake a couple of smart quips, a few tweets, and a few statements somewhere are good enough to win, turn the tables on Modi. What did Rahul Gandhi manage to do with all the victories he had in the assembly elections of MP, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, and before that, the so-called quote-unquote moral victory in Gujarat and he couldn't have done anything, and he had a washout just now in Gujarat because there is no base, nothing in the Congress. So Congress has to be built from scratch in a very different way. So neither can you have the reversal of Congress becoming BJP in the near future. It has to be a different churn, and vice versa. how BJP, the dynamics between RSS, BJP, everything changes. Ultimately, BJP, if people really were to question if Modi to tomorrow was on a weaker wicket, can you understand the impact of, say, Shivraj Chauhan or Raman Singh or any of that would be having a very, very different impact than the few people who are questioning Rahul Gandhi from the so-called G23 or anywhere. They don't have any real strong footing. And plus, in Modi's case, RSS would step in. Don't forget that if Modi and Amit Shah were to go the wrong way. So there are a lot of checks and balances.
Fair enough. Wait, so this the personality cult, Modi is clearly walking away with it. Whether it is the making of the television era or it's the vice versa. So tomorrow we'll probably see something else being named after him because there is no other opposition. We come back to that old argument again. There is no other tall leader, so the tallest one there is. Let him put his name on all the hoardings there are.
Yeah, I don't think it matters, Priya, if another road is named after Mr. Modi. If you're going to get outraged about what's happening in India and perhaps disillusioned by Mr. Modi, and what does it is the fact that a cricket stadium is named after him and not everything else that's going on, then what can I say but have another drink? I think the real issue is the one that Sanjay raised, which is how are we going to see this government? He is seeing it as the old Congress model. And the old Congress model, which is the Manmohan Singh Congress model, is lots and lots of welfare measures, but a pretty strong belief in the free market and therefore some degree of liberalization, accompanied, unfortunately, by a degree of crony capitalism. That's one way of looking at it. And that's a pretty good characterization of the Congress and perhaps of the Modi government till now. The critics of the government will say, and Sanjay alluded to this, is that what we're seeing is not a Manmohan Singh type model. What you're seeing is a Putin type model. You're seeing an oligarchy, you're seeing privatization, you're seeing oligarchs get control of national assets, you're seeing oligarchs who are very close to the center getting everything. And yes, maybe there will be prosperity, as there has been in Russia, but there certainly will be no freedom. It'll be oligarchs at every level running the show now. Whether you take the Congress characterization or you take the Putin characterization is really how you view things. It's glass half empty or glass half full.
This whole thing that now he's very, it's not just the naming of the stadium, it's this, he's very happy to carry on with the Soot Boot Ki Sarkar and bring on all this corporate, this. Is it the Putin model that he's really following?
No, I don't think it's anything like the Putin. Putin is somebody who is going to be perpetually in power based on a rigged electoral system. That's not the case here. What is happening is you got to see, what you got to see is that globally power is being centralized in all corporate sector. If you see the USA, the top 5 guys are the 5 tech firms. And they have enormous power, which Congress is now trying to reduce by breaking up companies like Facebook or for that matter, they may do that to Amazon or somebody later. So you're seeing that same trend here because the shift towards centralization of power in order to give free goods to people will make companies very thin. What does China have? It has 5 basic companies, which is your Tencent, Alibaba, those kind of guys. So everywhere you are seeing a concentration of economic power because of the changes brought about by technology. And my point is this, do I at least want 1 or 2 Indian companies, which could include an Ambani or an Adani, who can take on the Amazons of the world, or do you want us to be permanent digital coolies in the world? That's the, once you come to them, if they are able to hold their own, then breaking them up later on as a part of antitrust action makes sense. But this is the trend in which the world is moving. And I don't think India, you can produce all kinds of tiny companies which are going to take them on. It's not possible.
Is it just building up Atmanirbhar Bharat? That's all he's doing. He's not favoring a few companies. He's just building up brand India.
Well, there's also a joke that when you talk of self-reliance, you're actually focusing only on the latter. But Priya, let me say this upfront that, the truth is there is a political hubris within the government. And I can quite understand why this has happened, because the Congress has never been as weak as it has become today. So if we were in the Congress and the BJP was at 44 and 52 seats, we would believe we are absolutely invulnerable and we're going to be winning 2024 as well. And that is, by the way, the political narrative of the day. Many people are already predicting that Mr. Modi is winning 24. Technically, I believe that, this is where there is an opportunity actually for the Congress, because there is nothing more that I love when I play a game of tennis than an opponent who believes he's going to beat me. But that's where the confidence leads to many judgment and errors. And I think at the end of the day, in politics, one thing that I have learned by the hard way, there are no permanent winners or losers in politics. Things can change, and things can change dramatically on events that you can't even foresee today. So it's I think what Sandeep, Veer, and I think both even Jaggi have correctly mentioned, if the Congress is able to get his house in order, you got a great political contest going forward. But if the Congress does not get its act together, which is what a lot of us are fighting for, then the BJP will have to create some harakiri, what I call as the kamikaze moments. That can happen. But to rely on that to win 2024, that will not be smart for the Congress.
Last word, Veer, just to come back to your argument about the oligarchs and also what Jaggi had said, that he's just doing this to build brand India at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable point of view. What Jaggi is saying is build up brand India, let your giant companies take control, and later, if you feel they're misusing their power, use antitrust and break them up. That's correct. So you could, of course, have two views on whether a powerful company in India is ever amenable to antitrust or whatever, given the weakness of our system, but that's a separate argument. On the other hand, this talk about promoting your own companies and defeating the West or not being slaves to the West is pretty much the same rhetoric that they used in China and Russia. So it's not new.
On that note, thank you all for taking part in this discussion. And I hope to see you all again soon and hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.